Hi guys, this is Mrs. Bloom. I have met you guys a few times in your class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk you through today's lesson on the worksheet that you guys are going to be working on. So Mrs. Cherney, who you guys may have met, has started working on this. She's done some examples for you here. She's also included some writing of the step-by-step directions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you these problems, these same exact ones, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it step by step instead of like just having you see it as a snapshot. So that might help you guys out a little bit better. Okay, so for today, we're going to be using the quadratic formula to solve quadratic functions or equations. Okay, so we're going to be using the quadratic formula, which is up here on your paper. So the first thing we need to know is, what is the quadratic formula? So the quadratic formula is that x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of that is going to be over to a. So it's kind of a crazy formula, but we're going to let the calculator do some of the work for us. What we need to know is how to find your a, your b, and your c. So in a standard equation, what you're going to see is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, the x's might be other variables. They might be m's, they might be b's or v's or d's or w's, okay? But basically, anything in front of the x squared is going to be your a. Anything in front of the x is going to be your b. And anything here that's just a number is going to be your c. Now you have to be careful because these might be negative. So if this was minus bx, then your b would be negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at that first problem. The number one says that m squared minus 5m minus 14 equals 0. So the first thing we need to do is identify our a, our b, and our c. So I'm going to come off to the side here. And let's identify a, b, and c. So remember, your a is whatever's in front of the x squared term. So there's nothing here. So technically there's a 1. So our a is 1. Our b is right here, and it is negative 5. And our c is right here. It's the number without a variable, and that's negative 14. Okay, so there's our a, our b, and our c. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug that into this formula. Okay, so negative b. So negative, but then b is negative. So negative, negative 5 plus or minus square root of b squared. Well, that's negative 5 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 14. See how all of that is underneath that radical or that square root sign. And then all of that goes over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to start simplifying this down. So negative, negative 5, I'm just going to come up here where we have a little bit more room. Negative, negative becomes positive. So that's 5 plus or minus, and we're going to leave this under the radical. So now negative 5 squared, or negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. And then I'm just going to multiply all of this. So negative 4 times 1 times negative 14, which is positive 56. And then all of that over 2 times 1, or 2. All right, so now we're going to simplify what's under that radical. So we have 5 plus or minus the square root of 81 over 2. All right, well, the square root of 81, as we know, is 9. So that's 5 plus or minus 9 over 2. Now, at this point, you want to separate this into two separate problems. One where we do plus 9 over 2, and then one where we do minus 9 over 2. All right, so 5 plus 9 is 14, divided by 2 is 7. And 5 minus 9 is negative 4, divided by that is negative 2. So in this case, we get that m can equal 7 and negative 2. All right. I'm going to go ahead and do number 2 with you again, just because those are the ones that were done on the worksheet for you. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do number 2, which is b squared minus 4b plus 4 equals 0. All right, so our first step is to identify A, B, and C. So A, B, and C. All right, so A is whatever's in front of the squared term. Now don't get confused. We're doing A's, B's, and C's, but yet our variable is a B. So don't get confused there. Whatever's in front of the squared term, which is technically a 1, is your A. Whatever's in front of the plain variable is your B. And then whatever's just a number by itself or that constant is your C. All right, so we've identified A, B, and C. So now we're going to plug that into our formula again. Now, I always rewrite the formula. You don't have to. I always do just so I know what I'm referencing. Okay, so negative B. Well, negative, and then we come up here and we see what B is. Oh, that was negative 4. Plus or minus square root. Okay, B squared. So that's negative 4 squared minus 4 times A, which was 1, times C, which was 4. Now all of that over 2 times A, which is also 1. Right, I'm going to come back up here again just because I have some room. And I'm going to start simplifying. Negative 4 becomes 4. Negative 4 squared is 16. And now here we get negative 4 times 1 times 4, which is negative 16. And all of that over 2 times 1, which is 2. So now we simplify the piece under the radical. So we're going to do 4 plus or minus. Now, 16 minus 16 is 0. So we have radical 0, which, as you know, square root of 0 is 0. So again, this is where we would separate it into two different pieces. So this would be 4 plus 0 divided by 2 and 4 minus 0 divided by 2. Now in this case, because it was 0, they come out to be the same, and we end up saying that B equals 2. All right. So those two problems that we just did are these two problems on your worksheet, okay? It was number 1 and number 2 on your worksheet. You'll see that Mrs. Cherney did the same work that I did here and got the same answers. Okay, she also wrote out those steps for you right here. I've just kind of modeled it for you step by step. Now, I want to do one more problem with you, and that is number 7. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to do number 7 together. And the reason that we're going to do number 7 together is because it looks a little bit different. Okay, you remember when I gave you the quadratic formula, it always equals 0, right? So when we were looking at that formula, it was ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. But in this case, our equation does not equal 0. It equals 4. So the first thing that we have to do is get this equation to equal 0. So I'm going to subtract this 4, which is a constant. It's a number. It doesn't have any variables. So I'm going to also subtract it from this side where there's a constant. So now my equation is 4b squared plus 8b plus 3 equals 0. Now it's in the right format that I can identify my A, my B, and my C. So remember, A is what's in front of the squared term. B is what's in front of the regular variable without an exponent. And C is your constant or your number without a variable. All right, so now all of that is going to get plugged into the quadratic formula. So negative b, which is 8. All right, b squared, which is 8 squared, minus 4 times a times c. And all of that over 2 times a, which is 4 this time. All right, so I'm just going to come up here where I have a little bit more room. And now we're just going to start simplifying. So negative 8 plus or minus, all right, 8 squared is 64. And then negative 4 times 3 gives us negative 48. And then on the bottom, we have 2 times 4, so 8. All right, now we simplify what's under the radical. So negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 16. And all I did was 64 minus 48, got my 16, which I'm going to then divide by 8. Now we know that the square root of 16 is 4. This is where you separate it into 2 different problems. One where we add the 4, and one where we subtract the 4. So negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. And negative 4 divided by 8 gives us negative 1/2. Here, negative 8 minus 4 is negative 12. Negative 12 over 8 doesn't divide evenly, so we end up with negative 1.5. So for this problem, we know that B can equal negative 1/2 or negative 1.5. Okay, so guys, your job is to finish this worksheet. Okay, there are number 3, 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4, about 6 more problems for you to do. If you have any questions, okay, you can rewatch this video and see these step by step. You can also talk to Mrs. Cherney if you have any questions, all right, or you can also message me. Again, my name was Amy Bloom. I've seen you guys in class before. I've come to visit you. And if you need to get a hold of me, my email address is amy.hand@rusd.org. Okay, this was my maiden name. I got married, but my email address still hasn't changed. Okay, so amy.hand@rusd.org. If you have any questions or you need some extra help, you can always email me. You can rewatch this video. You can also ask your sub to email me, and I can maybe come up and try to help you guys with some more of these problems. Okay?